This lesson comes from Unit 2, Lesson 3 on relations in your algebra class. So what is a relation? A relation is any set of ordered pairs, and you can use a table, an arrow diagram, or a graph to show relations. So in the table you can see that we have x values and they correspond with y values. The 1, 2 would represent the ordered pair, and then 2, 4 is another ordered pair, 3, 8, and 4, 6. You can also represent it with an arrow diagram where an area of the x points to an area in the y. So 1, 2 is the ordered pair, 2, 4 ordered pair, and so on. And finally, you can represent it as a table, as a grouping of ordered pairs. So each of these points also represents a relation, and you can see the ordered pair 1, 2, the ordered pair 2, 4, 4, 6, and so on. So relation, important things to note about relation is that you have a domain and a range. The domain represents all of the x values or x coordinates, and it's helpful to think of it as inputs. And the range represents all of the y coordinates, the y values, and it helps to think of those as outputs. So domain is what you put in to something, range is what you get out. So remember that, it'll come up again later in the unit. So domain are the inputs, the x values, range is the outputs, the y values. So if I have a listing of ordered pairs, a relation is written with these little squiggly brackets, and it's a listing of ordered pairs. So if I want to identify the domain and range of this group, the domain is all of our x values. So -3, -2, -1, 0, and 1. I would list it as -3, -2, -1, 0, and 1, making sure to list them in chronological order. And for the range values, I see I have a 4, a 2, another 4, a -2, and a 3. For range values, if any of them repeat, you don't have to list it more than once. Same with a domain. So when you're listing your values, if you have repeating ones, just list them one time. And you can list them in numerical order again. So -2 is the smallest, and then a +2, 3, and 4. We only had to list that 4 once. Even though it showed up 2 times, you only have to list it once. So finding the domain and range of the different types of relations. So we have a table, we have a graph, or a coordinate grid, and we have an arrow diagram. So for the table, again, the domain values are all of the x values. So we would list them in numerical order, smallest to largest. So -4 is an x value, -2, 0, 2, and 4. And then for our range values, we're listing everything in our y column. So for our range values, if we list them in numerical order, you'd have a -9, -7, -5, -3, and -1. So again, we're just listing out the x values for domain, y values for range. Looking at our table, or our coordinate grid, we would go and list all of the coordinates of the points. So for the domain values and x values, same idea, or domain values and range. The domain for this one, I see we've got a -3, -1, 1, 1 is listed again, and a 2. So listing them in order, -3, -1, 1, and a 2. Make sure you've got your brackets. And our range values, we've got a 3, 1, -1, a 3 again, and a 5. So -1, 1, 3, and 5. And the last one, again, you can also represent a relation as an arrow diagram. So arrows pointing to the different values. And you can see it's already spread out by domain and range. Domain is our x values, range is our y values. So we have for the domain -12, -2, 2, and 12. And for our range, we have just 3 and 4. Okay, and one more thing, you can also display the relation. So they'll give you the grouping of ordered pairs and you just have to display them different ways. So to display it as a table, make sure that your ordered pairs are matched up. So for this first one, 1 is the x value, 2 is the y value. So 1 is the domain, the 2 is the range. Next one, 3 is the domain, 4 is the range, 5 is the domain, 2 is the range, and 9 and 4. And then same with these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, and 9, 4. And lastly, 1, 3, 5, and 9. And then 2, 4 are the two domain or range values. So the assignment for this lesson comes on page 286 to 288, 1 through 3, 13, 16, 19, 23, and 30. So make sure you do the practice problems, take the assessment, and if you have questions, make sure you reach out to me via Live Help, Skype, or Kmail.